There's two basic strategies when you're designing a solar system, a PV system. One of which is to use a string inverter, and what that means is that panels are wired in series, and there's multiple series strings of panels, but each individual series string may have 7, 8, or 9 panels wired in series. So the DC voltage, which is what the panels output, is cumulative, or additive, I should say. And a microinverter system is one in which there's a small inverter, and it's not very large. It's maybe 6 by 8 by an inch thick for each and every panel. The microinverter technology has a couple of advantages, one of which is a phenomenon called module mismatch. And when modules come off the line, a particular brand, they're not exactly all the same wattage when they're tested. They could be plus or minus a couple of watts each. And back to the string inverter type of architecture, when a string, I should say, when panels are wired in a series string, the one panel, let's just say for a 200 watt panel, one may be 205 watts, one may be 197 watts. Well, if there's a low panel in that string of 197 in this example, every panel in that string is going to behave like a 197 watt panel. And so the wattage of the entire string is going to be limited by the lowest common denominator, so to speak, the lowest wattage of all of those panels. Now, you don't have that problem when you have a microinverter system, because if one panel is 197 watts and the panel next to it is 205, because they each are, in essence, their own power plant, they're independent of one another, the output of the 205 is still going to remain 205, whereas if it were in a series string without 197, its output would be 8 watts less. Shading is another benefit. If you have partial shading on a panel, it can reduce that individual panel's output by 50%. And back to the series string discussion, that panel actually serves as a bottleneck, so to speak, an electrical bottleneck for every other panel that's in series with it. So the entire output is going to be reduced as a result. But again, if you have individual panels, each with their own microinverter, and one is shaded, it won't have any effect on the power output of the one next to it. The other thing too is, with this particular microinverter system, we can see real time the output of every panel through an online monitor throughout the day. So this phenomena I was telling you about, for instance, partial shading, you can actually see that in an array. So this helps in debug. If an inverter fails, we can look immediately on that map and figure out which one it is. First of all, it has to be designed on paper. It has to be engineered, and we have engineered it and had a structural engineer approve it, both in terms of the amount of weight, additional weight added to the roof, and also he approved or recommended or mandated, I should say, that we do a little bit more mounting rail than we normally would in a situation like this, just to ensure that the load, in other words, the weight of the array, is spread evenly over the existing roof structure. The first thing we do in the installation, after all the preliminaries are done, is we have to mount our mounting structure onto the roof, and that includes attaching feet into the roof and attaching rails to those feet. Once that's done, we attach the microinverters to the rails, we wire the microinverters together, and we start laying down panels. We wire the panels. It's all plug-and-play connectors, no hard wiring. We attach the panel wiring to the inverter wiring as we're laying the panels down, and then we secure those panels. And once all that is said and done, we have conduit coming from the roof down through the building to the main the main electrical room where we tie into the grid through an existing big electrical panel.